The cold metal collar bit into Lyra's blue skin as she stood motionless beside Commander Vreck's command chair. Her large violet eyes remained fixed on the floor, her slender frame tense with practiced stillness. 3 years had passed since the Cathians had raided her homeworld. 3 years since she had seen the twin moons of Navira. 3 years of serving as nothing more than a tool to be used and discarded. "What do you sense, creature?" Vreck's gravelly voice cut through her thoughts. The Xathian commander towered over her, his scaled skin a mottled gray-green in the harsh lighting of the bridge. His 4 yellow eyes narrowed as he waited for her response. Lyra closed her eyes and extended her empathic senses toward the viewscreen, where a distant space station orbited a small moon. "Fear," she said quietly. "They know you are coming. They have sent distress signals, but they doubt help will arrive in time." Vreck's mouth split into what passed for a smile among his kind, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. "Good. Fear makes them weak." The massive warship Dominator glided through space like a predator, its weapon systems powering up as they approached the station. Lyra felt a familiar sickness rise within her. Soon, more people would die or be enslaved, and she would be forced to help make it happen. "Your abilities serve the Empire well," Vreck said, running a clawed hand over the control panel. "Perhaps I will reward you with extra nutrition rations today." Lyra didn't respond. Food meant nothing when her spirit starved for freedom. The Navirians were peaceful by nature. Their empathic abilities evolved to foster understanding and harmony. Now those same abilities were weaponized, used to hunt and hurt. Around her, the Xathian crew worked at their stations, their movements efficient and cold. Some glanced at her with disgust, others with cruel curiosity. She was the only Navirian aboard the Dominator, though she knew other ships kept her people as slaves too. "Station defense systems activating," called out the weapons officer. "Primitive shielding. No match for our cannons." "Begin the attack," Vreck ordered. "I want that station intact enough to plunder." Lyra felt the vibration through the deck plates as the Dominator's main weapons fired. On the view screen, she watched energy beams tear through the station's outer defenses. She closed her eyes but couldn't block the sudden wave of terror that washed over her empathic senses, hundreds of beings facing their end. "You will identify which areas contain valuable resources," Vreck told her, activating the neural stimulator in her collar with a casual tap on his wrist device. Pain shot through Lyra's skull, a reminder of what happened when she failed to comply. "Yes, Commander," she whispered. Later, in her small quarters, a glorified cell with just enough room for a sleeping pad and washing station, Lyra curled into herself. The day's events replayed in her mind. The station conquered, survivors sorted into useful and expendable categories, resources claimed for the Empire. Her hands had shaken as she pointed out which sections likely contained medical supplies, which held valuable technology. She touched the smooth wall, tracing patterns from her childhood home. The patterns her mother had painted on their dwelling's walls, symbols of peace and connection. Sometimes, these memories were all that kept her sane. An alert sounded throughout the ship, pulling her from her thoughts. The overhead speaker crackled. "All senior officers to the bridge. Unidentified vessel detected." Lyra rose wearily. Soon Vreck would summon her. Another day, another ship to help conquer. As she waited for the inevitable call, she wondered if death might be kinder than this half-life of servitude. But something inside her, something the Xathians couldn't chain despite their technology, whispered that she must survive. That somehow, someday, these chains would break. She didn't know that day was approaching faster than she could imagine. The summons came sooner than Lyra expected. A harsh buzz from her collar jerked her to her feet, the neural implant compelling her body to move toward the bridge whether she wished to or not. The corridors of the Dominator were filled with unusual activity. Xathian warriors rushed past her, checking weapons and barking orders. Whatever ship they had discovered must be important. When Lyra entered the bridge, Commander Vreck was hunched forward in his command chair, studying the view screen with all 4 eyes narrowed to slits. "Come here," Empath, he ordered without turning. Lyra approached and looked at the screen. A small vessel drifted against the backdrop of stars. Its design was unlike any she had seen before. Sleek lines with wide engine pods and a rounded command section. The ship appeared damaged, with scorch marks visible along one side. "What is it?" she asked quietly. "Unknown," Vrek replied. "They call themselves humans. Their ship is named Horizon." He tapped his control panel. "Watch." The screen changed to show a recording. A being appeared, similar to Lyra's kind in having 2 arms and legs, but with pinkish-brown skin and dark hair on top of its head. Its face had oddly expressive features. "This is Captain Ellen Gardner of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon," the being said. "We've sustained damage from an ion storm and are conducting repairs. We welcome peaceful contact with your vessel." Vrek paused the recording. They responded to our hail without hesitation. Foolish. They don't know about the Empire, Lyra realized. Precisely. Vrek's mouth curved in that terrible smile. "What do you sense from their ship?" Lyra closed her eyes, extending her empathic abilities toward the horizon. Immediately, she gasped. The emotional patterns emanating from the vessel were different from any she had encountered before. Complex layers of worry, determination, curiosity, and something else. Something bright and warm that she couldn't name. "They're damaged but not afraid," she said. "They're hopeful, curious. They don't understand we're a threat." Vrek laughed, a harsh sound like stones grinding together. "Ignorance is such a weakness, and these humans will make for interesting study." He activated the ship-wide communication system. "Boarding parties, prepare for capture mission. I want specimens taken alive." "How many beings aboard their vessel?" he asked Lyra. She concentrated again. 23. No, 24. One presence is fainter than the others. "Remember your place, creature," Vrek said, noticing her unusual interest. "Your task is to help identify which of these humans will be most useful to interrogate." Lyra lowered her eyes. "Yes, Commander." The Dominator positioned itself above the smaller ship, its shadow engulfing the horizon. Tractor beams activated, holding the vessel in place. On the view screen, the human captain appeared again, her expression changing from diplomatic to alarmed. "Xathian vessel, please explain your actions," Captain Gardner said. "We have no quarrel with you." Vrek cut the communication without responding. "Boarding parties, launch." Lyra watched the screen as armored Xathian warriors cut through the human ship's airlock. The empathic waves of surprise and fear suddenly flooding through her connection made her wince. But beneath those expected emotions, she sensed something else from the humans, not the broken submission she usually felt from conquered peoples, but a fierce, protective determination. And from somewhere deep in the ship, that one faint presence she detected earlier seemed to grow more focused, more resolved. As the first humans were marched onto the Dominator in restraints, Lyra knew something was different about this conquest. The captain, Ellen Gardner, caught her eye as she was led past, and for a brief moment, their gazes locked. The human showed no disgust at Lyra's alien appearance. Instead, in that fleeting connection, Lyra felt something she had nearly forgotten existed. Recognition, not of what she was, but of who she was. A person, not a tool. The realization nearly brought her to her knees. Jack Murphy pressed himself deeper into the narrow maintenance duct as heavy footsteps passed below. His heart hammered in his chest, but years of working in tight spaces had taught him how to control his breathing. The ship's chief engineer hadn't planned on becoming the last free human aboard the Horizon, but when the attack came, instinct had sent him crawling into the one place the large reptilian invaders couldn't easily follow. Through a small vent, he watched his crewmates being marched away at gunpoint. Captain Gardner walked with her head high, even as one of the aliens shoved her forward. Jack bit his lip until he tasted blood. He couldn't save them by getting captured too. When the ship fell silent, Jack crawled to the junction that led to the emergency systems control panel. The horizon was damaged but not dead. He could still access some systems. "Come on, old girl," he whispered, connecting his tablet to the hidden access port. "Show me what's happening." The tablet flickered to life, displaying fragmented data feeds. Most of the ship's cameras were offline, but engineering backups were designed to survive worse than this. Jack cycled through the remaining feeds until he found one showing the alien ship. The massive vessel dwarfed the horizon, its dark hull bristling with weapons. Another feed showed his crewmates being processed through some kind of security checkpoint. The aliens were methodical, scanning each human and separating them into different groups. "I'm coming for you," Jack promised quietly. Somehow, he pulled up the ship's communications array. The main system was dead, but the emergency beacon operated on a separate circuit. He wouldn't risk a distress call. Who knew how far these aliens could detect transmissions? But maybe he could use it differently. Jack had always had a knack for figuring out how things worked. He studied the alien ship's communication patterns, noting the frequencies they used. Their tech was advanced, but followed recognizable principles. After an hour of careful work, he managed to create a narrowband receiver that could intercept their internal communications. Most of it was incomprehensible, harsh, guttural sounds that made no sense to him. But occasionally, he caught translated fragments. They were using some kind of universal translator, probably to interrogate the crew. Meanwhile, aboard the Dominator, Lyra stood silently beside Commander Freck as he questioned Captain Gardner. "Your species is unknown to us," Freck said. "Explain your territory and defenses." The human captain sat straight in her restraint chair. "We are explorers. Earth is a peaceful planet seeking knowledge and friendship with other worlds." Freck signaled to Lyra. Is she telling the truth? Lyra focused on the human's emotional patterns. "She believes what she says," Lyra replied softly. "Their world values exploration and peaceful contact." Freck made a dismissive gesture. "Weakness, as I thought. Tell me, human, do your people possess empathic abilities like this creature?" He placed a heavy claw on Lyra's shoulder. Captain Gardner's eyes flicked to Lyra, then back to Freck. "No, we don't." Something in the human's gaze made Lyra look deeper into her emotional patterns. Beneath the fear and determination was a protective feeling, not just for her crew, but extending to Lyra as well. This human captain saw Lyra's captivity and felt compassion for her. The sensation was so unexpected that Lyra nearly stumbled backward. "The empath indicates you speak truth," Freck said, misinterpreting Lyra's reaction. "Your species will be easy to conquer without mind shields." He turned to leave. "Continue the interrogation. I want detailed star charts of human territory by next cycle." As Freck left, Captain Gardner's eyes met Lyra's again. "They force you to do this," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Before Lyra could respond, her collar buzzed a warning. She wasn't permitted to engage with prisoners unless ordered. But as she turned away, something unusual registered on her empathic senses, a distant presence, focused and determined, moving through the ship's communication systems like a whisper. Someone else was still free. Someone was watching. Someone was planning. Lyra sat alone in the monitoring chamber, her slender fingers moving across the control panel as she reviewed prisoner communications. Commander Freck had ordered her to scan for any useful information the humans might share when they thought no one was listening. The task was routine, but something kept distracting her. That strange presence she had sensed earlier. It was moving through the ship's systems, elusive but persistent. Whenever she tried to focus on it directly, it seemed to fade, only to reappear elsewhere. A small alert flashed on her screen. An unauthorized access point had activated in a rarely used communications channel. Protocol dictated she report it immediately. Instead, Lyra hesitated. She glanced at the door to ensure she was alone, then quickly redirected the signal to her private terminal. If she was caught, the punishment would be severe, but curiosity, a feeling she had suppressed for so long, drove her forward. She typed a simple message. "Who are you?" For several long moments, nothing happened. Then words appeared on her screen. Jack Murphy, engineer, Horizon. Who am I talking to? Lyra's heart beat faster. One of the humans had escaped capture. She should sound the alarm. But instead, her fingers moved on their own. Lyra, not Xathian. Prisoner like your people. The response came quickly. They're holding my crew. Are they alive? Yes. Being questioned. Not harmed yet. She paused, then added, I am forced to help interrogate them. The silence stretched so long that Lyra thought Jack had disconnected. Then, are you the blue one with the collar? Captain Gardner mentioned you. Lyra touched her neural collar unconsciously. Yes, I am Navirian. Slave to Commander Vrek for 3 years. You don't want to be. It wasn't a question, but Lyra answered anyway. No. Meanwhile, Jack sat crammed in the narrow junction between 2 maintenance shafts aboard the Horizon. His tablet displayed the strange conversation. He had expected to find a way to monitor his crew, not to talk with one of their captors. Yet something in this alien's short messages felt genuine. Captain Gardner had told them during their brief communication window that one of the aliens seemed different, a prisoner herself. Jack made a decision. I'm going to rescue my crew. I could use help from someone who knows the ship. Lyra stared at the message in disbelief. This human didn't even know her, yet he was willing to trust her. It had been so long since anyone had viewed her as anything but a tool. Too dangerous, she typed back. Guards everywhere. Your technology is no match for theirs. Maybe not, Jack replied. But I've been studying their communication systems. They're advanced but not secure. I've already mapped parts of your ship through service pathways. To prove his point, a schematic appeared on her screen. A rough but recognizable layout of the Dominator's main level. Impressive, Lyra admitted. But Xathians are ruthless. They will kill you. They'll kill us all eventually anyway, Jack wrote. So I'm going to try. Will you help? Lyra's hand hovered over the panel. The logical choice was to report this human, to continue her obedient existence. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Captain Gardner's compassionate gaze. She felt again that strange warmth in the human emotional patterns, something she now recognized as hope. If we fail, death will be the pleasant outcome, she warned. I understand the risk, came Jack's response, but I can't abandon my crew, and the message paused before continuing. And I won't abandon you either. If we succeed, you're coming with us. Freedom for everyone. Freedom. The word echoed in Lyra's mind like a forgotten melody. With trembling fingers, she typed her response. I will help you. In that moment, something inside her that had been dormant for years sparked to life. For the first time since her capture, Lyra allowed herself to hope. Jack moved through the dark maintenance shafts of the Dominator, his heart pounding in his chest. Following Lyra's directions, he had managed to sneak aboard the alien warship through an emergency airlock used for repairs. Turn left at the next junction. Lyra's voice whispered through the small communication device he had rigged from parts scavenged on the horizon. 2 guards patrol this section, but they passed by 20 seconds ago. You have about 4 minutes. Jack slipped down the corridor, staying close to the wall. The Xathian ship was hot and humid, designed for its reptilian crew. Sweat dripped down his face as he counted doorways. 3rd door on the right, Lyra instructed. Place your hand on the small panel beside it. Jack pressed his palm against the indicated spot. To his surprise, the door slid open. I reconfigured it to accept human biometrics, Lyra explained. Quickly now. He stepped inside a small chamber, Lyra's quarters. The room was sparse, with only a sleeping pad and a few personal items. Lyra stood by the far wall, her violet eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope. You really came, she whispered, as if she hadn't truly believed he would. Jack nodded. I keep my promises. He approached her slowly, studying the metal collar around her neck. Is this what controls you? Lyra touched the device. Yes, Neural restraint technology. It punishes disobedience and can be activated remotely. Jack removed a small toolkit from his pocket. I studied the schematics you sent. I think I can disable it. He paused. It might hurt. Freedom is worth pain, Lyra said simply. Jack worked carefully, connecting a small device to the collar's control panel. His fingers moved with the precision that had made him the Horizon's chief engineer. After several tense minutes, there was a soft click. The collar loosened and fell to the floor. Lyra gasped, her hands flying to her neck. For the first time in 3 years, her mind was fully her own. The constant pressure, the lurking threat of pain, gone. Tears filled her eyes as new sensations flooded through her. I can feel everything, she whispered. My abilities, they're stronger without the restraint. Jack smiled. How does freedom feel? Before she could answer, an alarm blared through the ship. Vrek knows, Lyra said, suddenly alert. He must have detected the collar deactivation. She closed her eyes briefly. He's ordering a ship-wide search. Jack checked the small tablet he carried. We need to move. The plan was to free you, then get to my crew. Lyra shook her head. There's no time for both before they lock down the ship. We need to split up. She moved to a small panel on the wall and pressed her hand against it, revealing a hidden compartment with a weapon. I can sabotage the weapon systems. You free your people. That wasn't the plan, Jack protested. I promised to keep you safe, and I promised to help you. Lyra countered, her voice stronger than before. For the first time, I can truly fight back. She handed him a small data chip. This will override the cell block security. Your captain is in detention level 3, along with most of your crew. Jack hesitated, then nodded. We meet at docking bay 2 in 30 minutes. If either of us doesn't make it, the other continues the mission, Lyra said firmly. Jack reached out and squeezed her hand, a human gesture of connection. Be careful. As they prepared to part ways, Lyra suddenly touched Jack's face, her fingers gentle against his skin. No Xathian would risk their life for a slave, she said softly. Thank you for showing me that the universe still holds goodness. Then she was gone, slipping into the corridor with a new determination in her step. Jack watched her disappear, then turned toward the detention level. The real fight was just beginning. Captain Ellen Gardner looked up as the door to the detention cell slid open. Instead of the usual Xathian guard, a familiar face appeared. Jack, she whispered in disbelief. No time to explain, Captain. Jack worked quickly, deactivating her restraints. We're getting everyone out. Ellen didn't waste time with questions. How many of us are free? Just you so far, Jack said, checking the corridor. But I have a plan to release everyone. As they moved to the next cell, Ellen noticed something. You're not alone in this. Someone's helping you. Jack nodded. Lyra, the blue alien with the collar. Except now she doesn't have a collar, and she's helping us escape. Ellen smiled slightly. I knew there was something different about her. Together, they worked through the detention level, freeing the Horizon's crew cell by cell. With each person released, their small rebellion grew stronger. Meanwhile, Lyra moved through the lower decks of the Dominator, staying in the shadows. Her newly unleashed empathic abilities gave her an advantage. She could sense the Xathian guards before they saw her. She reached the main weapons control room. 2 technicians worked at the consoles. Lyra closed her eyes and focused. For the first time, she turned her abilities outward not just to sense emotions, but to project them. Waves of confusion and drowsiness flooded from her mind into theirs. The technicians slumped in their chairs, disoriented and unable to focus. Lyra slipped inside, moving quickly to the main control panel. As the ship's engineer, Vrek had often forced her to learn Xathian systems to assist with repairs. Now that knowledge would help destroy those same systems. Her fingers danced across the controls, overriding safety protocols and rerouting power. Alarms blared as the weapon systems began to overload. "Step away from the console," a harsh voice commanded. Lyra froze. Commander Vrek stood in the doorway, his plasma rifle aimed at her head. "I knew you would betray me eventually," he said, his 4 yellow eyes narrowed with rage. "All slaves break or run. It was only a matter of time." Lyra turned to face him. "I am not a slave. I never was. You just made me forget who I really am." Vrek laughed coldly. "And what are you?" "A weak empath from a conquered world. Your people were too peaceful to even fight back." "Peace is not weakness," Lyra said, standing taller. "And I am not alone anymore." Vrek stepped closer. "Your human friends. They are already being recaptured. And when I find the one who removed your collar, his death will be slow." Elsewhere on the ship, Jack, Ellen, and the freed crew fought their way toward the hangar bay. The captain had quickly organized their people into a coordinated unit, despite having limited weapons they'd taken from guards. "The hangar is 2 levels down," Jack said, consulting his tablet. "Lyra should meet us there." A group of Xathian guards rounded the corner ahead, weapons raised. "Back!" Ellen shouted, pulling her people into a side corridor. Energy blasts sizzled past them, scorching the walls. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. "We need another route," Ellen said. Jack checked his tablet again. "There's a maintenance shaft that bypasses the next 2 sections." It shoaled. He was interrupted by a ship-wide announcement in Vrek's harsh voice. "Attention, human intruders. I have your alien accomplice. Surrender immediately, or I will execute her." Jack's face went pale. "He has Lyra." Ellen put a hand on his shoulder. "What do we do?" Before Jack could answer, the ship lurched violently. Lights flickered as the Dominator's systems went haywire. "What was that?" someone asked. Jack smiled slightly, hope returning to his eyes. That was Lyra. She got to the weapons systems after all. A second, more powerful shudder ran through the ship. "And I think she's just getting started." The Dominator shuddered again, as explosions rippled through its weapons systems. Commander Vrek dragged Lyra toward the escape pods, keeping his plasma rifle pressed against her back. "You've doomed this ship," he snarled, "but I won't let you escape." Lyra stumbled forward, buying time with each step. Her sabotage had worked better than expected. The ship's systems were failing rapidly, cascading from the weapons array into other critical components. "The Empire will hunt you forever for this," Vrek threatened. Lyra felt no fear now. Some things are worth being hunted for. They reached the escape pod chamber. Vrek shoved her inside the nearest pod and followed, sealing the door behind them. As he turned to the control panel, Lyra closed her eyes and concentrated. With her collar gone, her empathic abilities flowed freely. She pushed into Vrek's mind, not to read his emotions, but to amplify them. His anger, his fear, his hatred. She magnified them until they overwhelmed his senses. Vrek clutched his head, roaring in pain. "What are you doing to me?" "Showing you what it feels like," Lyra said quietly, "to be chained." Meanwhile, Jack led the humans through another explosion-rocked corridor. They had changed their plan, heading for the emergency evacuation area instead of the main hangar. Lyra must be near the escape pods, Jack told Captain Gardner as they ran. That's where Vrek would go if the ship was failing. Ellen nodded grimly. "And that's where we're going too." They rounded the corner to find the escape pod chamber. Through the viewport of the nearest pod, they could see Lyra confronting Vrek. The Xathian commander was on his knees, his weapons forgotten as he clutched his head. "We need to get that door open," Jack said, rushing to the external controls. Inside the pod, Vrek fought through the mental assault. With a desperate lunge, he grabbed Lyra's leg, pulling her down. They struggled on the floor of the pod, Vrek's superior strength giving him the advantage. "You forget," he growled, pinning her down. "Xathians evolved from predators. Our minds are stronger than you think." His clawed hand closed around her throat. Lyra gasped for air, her concentration breaking. Suddenly, the pod door slid open. Jack stood in the doorway, a stolen Xathian weapon in his hands. "Let her go," he ordered. Vrek spun around, using Lyra as a shield. The engineer. "I should have killed you when we found your ship." Jack didn't lower his weapon. "It's over, Vrek. Your ship is breaking apart. Your crew is evacuating. Let her go, and you can leave in this pod." Vrek laughed harshly. "You think I fear death more than failure? The Empire does not tolerate commanders who lose their ships." In one swift motion, he threw Lyra aside and lunged at Jack. The human fired, but Vrek moved with unexpected speed. The blast caught him in the shoulder instead of the chest. Wounded but still dangerous, the commander slammed into Jack, sending them both crashing against the wall. Lyra struggled to her feet as the two fought. She saw Jack's weapon skitter across the floor. Vrek had Jack pinned now, his clawed hand raised for a killing blow. With all her remaining strength, Lyra projected not anger or fear, but calmness, a wave of peace so powerful that it momentarily stunned everyone in the pod. In that moment of stillness, she grabbed the fallen weapon and fired. Vrek collapsed to the floor, his yellow eyes wide with shock. "Impossible," he whispered as the light faded from his eyes. Jack staggered to Lyra's side. "Are you hurt?" Before she could answer, Captain Gardner appeared at the door. "We need to go. Now, the ship's core is destabilizing." They left Vrek's body in the pod and raced to join the rest of the humans. Together, they secured enough evacuation vessels for everyone. As they launched away from the Dominator, the massive warship exploded in a brilliant flash that lit up the darkness of space. From the viewport of their escape craft, Lyra watched the ship that had been her prison disintegrate. Jack stood beside her, his hand gently touching hers. "Where will you go now?" he asked. Lyra looked at the stars, the same stars that had once seemed like distant, unreachable points of light from her cell. Now they represented possibility. "Home," she said, "and then everywhere."